Hello, legends. Today, I catch up with my good friend and club member, Tim Cullen. Tim is the co-founder of an incredible business named Tradie Spec. Tradie Spec's a company it's a rent-to-own vehicle business that basically provides tradies with affordable, high-quality trades vehicles so that they can run their businesses. It's an incredible example of a business that has taken a model and concept that is widely used, but has specialized, and by doing so, has done incredibly well. And we discuss many topics that are relevant to all businesses, including specialization, team management and growth, Jim Collins, and the economy. Tim is an incredible guy. I love him very much, and I know you will too. Enjoy the show. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
You're alive, and we were scheduled to do last week, and
Yeah.
I heard you were barely living.
I made it through. It was touch and go. I'm not even kidding. It was touch and go. Whatever it was bad. It was worse than COVID. I was struggling.
Yeah, have you noticed though, like everybody these days, people just get wiped out when they get sick. Like you don't just get sick.
No,
you get like sick on the brink of like, not death, but like death from boredom because you can't move.
Pretty much.
You're just stuck there.
Pretty much. I went all around the office. Started with, I think I know who the person was. Started with one person. I got
What
it.
do they call that person?
Patient zero.
Yeah, patient zero.
So patient zero came in for the day. And then I copped it. I was bad for 5 days. And then I've just had this like lingering, I don't know, sinus thing anyway.
Is
I'm
it
all
like
right.
like a flu?
It felt like the flu, but yeah, it got worse. Then it felt like dengue fever or something. It got terrible.
Don't give it to me. But I supplement so much these days, and I actually don't get sick because of it, touch wood.
Yeah.
But I literally, I reckon I'm pumping about 6 pills every morning.
Yeah.
6 pills probably every night, maybe 4. And then every 2 weeks or so, if I even feel that, like Laura was sick the other day or the other week.
Yeah.
And I was staying away from her, but I was still a bit suspicious. So I I use Ivy Leagues. The drip company.
Oh, yeah.
They come.
Yeah.
I get 30 grams of C straight into the veins. I put everything else in there as well.
Yeah.
And that kind of prevents me. But it's a full-time. It's actually very expensive to not get sick these days. So.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your go-to? What pills do you?
Well, at the moment, I'm taking a berberine, which is like a anti-inflammatory, but it's good for all sorts of things.
Yep.
I'm taking this, I got a shit stomach, so I'm taking this one called Gut Inflamax.
Yep.
I take 2 in the morning, 2 at night. That one's been the best one I ever take because it even made me stop snoring, made my stomach better, but it's also good for immunity and things like that.
Yep.
I'm taking these like super immune booster. It's actually disgusting because they're kind of garlicky and they got all this shit, but it's all natural.
I have similar.
It's gross,
yeah.
but I couldn't bear taking them at first. I have got used to it now.
Yeah.
But I can feel the difference with them. Like I feel healthy. I'm not getting sick. And then I just take these. I've got this nutritionist from Wallara who gave me all these other vitamins and things. Vitamin D. I take bulk vitamin D in the little capsules, like the little oils, and bulk fish oils for the brain and all that type of stuff.
I take those too as well religiously. But there's also something, I swear I read this somewhere, that your gut health is linked to your moods.
Oh yeah, me. If my stomach's bad, I might stab someone.
Same, yeah. I'm the same. And if I get up in the morning, like my morning routine is important to me, right? And when I was sick, I couldn't get up and go for a run, which is my sort of like my setup for the day. Because if I don't go for a run, I feel like I hate rolling out of bed and going straight to work and dealing with like a problem straight off the bat. Like I'd rather go through, like if you go for a run, you go to the gym or you put yourself through a bit of pain in the morning, the next problem you deal with at work, which is usually a problem. You're rarely dealing with something fun.
Never do you get there, you're like, man, there's just so much money sitting here.
Yeah,
right?
Something fantastic has happened and I want to deal with this. No, it's always a problem. So if I get up and go for a run in the morning and like kind of, put myself through a bit of pain, then that first issue never really seemed so bad. But when I got sick, I couldn't do any of that. So it just snowballed. Like my mood sucked. I was unproductive for the first couple of hours of the day. I had a coffee too early. I was having a coffee too early to wake up and I wasn't doing as much, but then I felt terrible and I was sort of crashing before. Like that routine I find is like so important. And when it gets stuffed around, I reckon my productivity and my, I guess mood in general drops dramatically.
Well, it can also be because when you do exercise, you do get your brain, like your body releases the positive hormones and like you get the dopamine.
Yeah.
So you're just in a better mood. So when you get to the office, the problem happens, you're looking at it from more of a positive perspective as opposed to like,
exactly.
You've already got the right hormones flowing around the body. Like
for sure.
That's a big aspect. What time do you get to work?
So I usually get any time between maybe 6:45 and 7:15 is like usually, I don't live far from work. It takes me like a couple of minutes to get to work in the morning, which is great. It's very handy. But I'll try and get up, say maybe between 5 and 5:30, go for a run. Then I go past to get a coffee and then I go straight to work. And then I set up all my meetings. I don't know how you do your mornings, but I set up my meetings at the start of the day to get them all out of the way. So I've got time to do everything else that I need to do. But if I roll out of bed and go to work, the meetings are unproductive. They're unimportant. I'm not fun to be around in the morning either if I'm not prepared for it. So, but typically that's sort of like how
I actually start. So I do it kind of different. I get to the office at 7.
Yeah.
So that's my start time for work. If I don't go to the office, which is like 99% of the time I go to the office. If I don't, for whatever reason, like I have a podcast in the morning like today, I'll start at 7 at the cafe near my house. But I don't do my meetings in the morning. I do them like at the earliest I'll have meetings is 11 or 12. Because the morning is my key thinking time.
Sure,
I'd rather give that to myself than other people. So,
That's,
most of my meetings are just, when you're meeting with someone, half the time you're just getting along with them, you're talking to them, you're building a relationship. I don't know what you're talking about, but I find that I like to keep the mornings really clear for myself. Because that's when my brain is like on, it's working its best. And I do that. The only thing is I'm a bit more lazy than you. I can't wake up at 5. I'm sure I can, and like I would, and I'm probably going to start doing it because I do need to start getting back to the gym. But like I'll wake up at 6, even 6:30, and then I'll walk to work. So I get that half an hour walk in the morning. But starting your day is important. We've got a lot of new listeners since last time you came on. Why don't you give an intro to Tradie Spec, and just like let me know where the business is at the moment, how much it's grown since last time.
For sure. So I was looking through the archives the other day to try and figure out when we met. So I think we met sort of around the start of 2023 was, I think from memory. So Tradie Spec is a business that provides fit-for-purpose commercial rentals to tradies on a particular type of rental. So it's a flexible contract. So it's sort of a hybrid between, say, a finance lease and a rental. You've got the flexibility of a rental and being able to hand the vehicle back, or you can see the contract through and own the vehicle at the end.
Like rent to own.
Rent to own is exactly the term for it. We have a couple of other offerings, but that's our flagship service. And
tradies are doing that with like tradie cars, like utes and like work vehicles, basically.
That's right, yeah. So we do only premium commercial vehicle is the offering. So that way we can guarantee reliability of vehicle, which is a major part of our service and competitive advantage. And we do premium spec. So the tradie knows that they're going to get on the road in a car, in an asset that is not going to break down on them. So it's undisrupted. They don't have to live and work without concern for disruption of loss of income. And 2, the asset is going to maintain its value as best as possibly can over the life of the contract. So there's 2 major advantages of the
having a better car, basically.
Exactly.
And so the alternative would be the tradie has to buy a cheaper car outright because they may not be able to get finance for whatever reason.
Yeah, which if you're a startup trade business, you're better off putting your capital into the operating setup of the business and your marketing and your infrastructure rather than purchasing a vehicle. In fact, I think probably traditionally traders will go out and spend their money on branding the car as part of their marketing, brand awareness. And many of the guys that we speak to, that is their number one lead source. Literally, one of the people we spoke to the other day said that the way I get my leads is that I have my phone number on the car, and as I drive around, I get calls randomly from people. That's that sort of, mentality has changed recently a lot in that tradies are becoming more aware about how to set up their business for success, and that starts with investing your capital in the infrastructure in the early days. And we do a bit of education with tradies on that as well, which comes kind of as part of the service. But last time we met, I think we had just under 300 cars on the road. We're sort of coming up on about 700 at the moment. So it's been a hell of a year and a half since we last met. We've opened up a site in Melbourne, which we're stoked about. It's down in Moonee Ponds, and we've started servicing Brisbane as well, and we're trying to move into Brisbane at the moment. So,
and how did you get that type of scale? How did you get that much, like at 300 to 700 in a year and a half, 2 years, even 3 years is a lot of growth.
Yep.
What were some of the problems that you were having what were some of the problems you experienced when more than doubling in size?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for us is it's such a cash-thirsty business model. So you think about the cost of the amount of money you're required to buy 700 utes. I think we've got roughly $24 million worth of utes on the road. So you need the capital to purchase the utes, and that's a constant process of going back to the financiers every quarter. This is what we've done. This is where the business is at. Here's an update on where we're going for the future. These are the challenges we're facing. This is what we're doing about it. So constantly maintaining the relationship with the financiers is really critical. That's been the hardest part for us by far, is ensuring that
getting them to keep giving you money,
getting them to keep giving us money in a short amount of time. Because that is from, in my experience, contrary to what I originally thought, is that financiers, the second you start to sort of push the sort of certain brackets of $5 million, $10 million is when they start to get really sort of, I guess, focused on what you are doing inside the business, because their risk is obviously increasing over time. And it's funny, I sat down with the CEO of Toyota Finance maybe a couple of weeks ago, had a conversation about credit and risk at the moment, and credit risk has gone up over the last 12 months and will probably stay high for the next 12 months because of the way the economy is. And he said, and I doubt that I'll ever forget this, he said that, at any point in time when we assess a business can look okay. He said, but give people enough time in a business and there will always be some kind of hurdle that threatens the existence of that business. And they see it obviously all the time. I think Toyota's got about 160,000 cars under their management or under finance. So, he said, give it enough time and, businesses will run into hurdles, and a lot of the time the hurdles are big enough to take the business down. And so, that's one of the things that I thought was really interesting, is that because we have a similar situation with our clients that, over time, sometimes these businesses don't last, and often it results in lost money for us or for the financier, depending on the situation. So,
how are you finding the economy at the moment, though? Like, I'm talking to a lot of people, and like I know construction, for example, is pretty well fucked, for lack of a better word. Yeah. Like most construction people I talk to, like even people that have been in the industry their whole lives and have successful businesses and really love building, are saying that they're not enjoying it at the moment. Like people aren't paying them. There's too many regulations. There's all this type of stuff. Have you noticed anything with your with your customers?
I think most certainly the biggest issue that the construction industry face, and I'm certainly probably not the best position to describe this, but I have spoken to a lot of people in the industry, and one of the things that they say, funnily enough, is that for one, the industry has done a little bit to itself in that it's been a race to the bottom in how cheap they can get quoting, which has meant that the margins have become so razor thin, and the second the cost of business goes up, they get caught in an awkward position where those margins get eaten away very, very quickly. And often in the construction industry or the trade and building industry, the threat is on cash flow. That's really where it lies, right? There's so much, the market's at saturation. There's so many businesses out there operating in this space. There's plenty of work. There's more than enough work for all of them, definitely.
We need more houses.
We need more houses, right? It's a major talking point at the moment. And so there's a huge amount of work available. They're all booked out. The problem is when they don't get paid on one of those jobs and there's a large amount of debt sitting outstanding or credit sitting outstanding owing by someone, that they don't have the surplus funds to cover their supply chain side of things. And so we see that a lot. These a lot of guys, smaller businesses, but I mean certainly happening in the larger corporate space, they're not aware of how much money they're making on a particular job, and that impacts their ability to forecast what happens on the next job. And all it takes is something to go wrong.
One slow payer, and then the whole house can fall down.
That's right.
But it's an interesting concept, like how to not be on a race to the bottom. Because really, any service or product can be in a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
Like that, it's if all you're selling is the service or the product, you will end up in a race to the bottom.
For sure.
You know how like, and perhaps trades businesses, it could be something that they look more at, but is in the branding or the specialization. Like if you think about Meriton, for example, or even just trades in general, like what's the number one thing the customer, like the person who's building their house, for example, is most fearful of? Like they want a trusted, reputable builder who's going to deliver the job, not go bankrupt, and deliver a high quality product.
Yep.
And they're probably willing to pay more for that if they know that, you know, there's evidence of that. And like good evidence of that is like Meriton. You know, if you buy a Meriton apartment, you know that building is going to be built.
Absolutely.
You know it's going to be built of good quality. You're not going to have any long-term issues. And you're probably paying slightly more than you're paying, you know, the building next door, which is, you know, new brand builder that some developer set up this brand for this specific building and no one really knows who it is.
Yep.
When Meriton, you know, so when Meriton builds, you know that building's happening. You know your money's safe in that. And the same is with like housing. Like I think that's been a huge lack of the construction industry is the focus on building reputable brands.
Yep.
Even if you're a small business.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that we see with the trade businesses and construction businesses that are really successful are the ones that hone in on their specialization, right? They find the point that they're particularly good at, and then they double down on that point, right? And if you think about market where there's so much competition, because you're right in what you're saying, that in every industry, ultimately it does become a process of cheapening of the product to a point at which the margin is small, right? And that's sort of inevitable over time. The construction industry's had so much time for that to occur in. But the businesses that we see, and we've got a couple of these businesses, they establish their values of the business really well. They understand what they're good at. They double down on that. They hire people who are also particularly good at that skill set. And then they advertise around that. And they don't take on clients. They don't take on business in areas that they're not particularly good at. And that's not just specific to the construction industry. That can be applied across many industries, right? And you would have multiple conversations. I'm sure you would see the same with people in
Definitely. Well, with all business, the more you specialize, the better. Like it's actually, I made a new friend named Alan Dibb.
Yep.
He's based in Melbourne. I met him through BOA actually. He's now a Cub member too. But he hosted, like he was an advisor at an event for BOA. And he wrote a book called The One Page Marketing Plan, which is how we found him. Anyway, this guy was one of the smartest. I loved him. I thought he was one of the like smartest kind of brand marketing kind of people. He's actually like a tech entrepreneur, made a fortune in technology, but I don't know how he got into branding and marketing, but that's what he talks a lot about. It's about specialization and like not being afraid to lose potential sales by specializing. You know, so like, for example, if you're like, I only want to sell to young entrepreneurs, don't be afraid of, you know, your marketing saying for young entrepreneurs and losing people that may not be young entrepreneurs, because basically what he's saying is you're probably going to get more people because any young entrepreneur that sees it is going to be like, oh, that's definitely for me. I should, you know, I should definitely be joining in. And eventually, you know, you might conquer that particular demographic. So like, I have all the young entrepreneurs now. And then you might make new ads that say, we're for women business owners. Yeah. You know, it's for business women. You know, and so basically he talks about just focusing on one specialty at a time. And he said 9 times out of 10, people never then go to focus on the next specialty, on the next demographic or the next focus, because that one's so big. Like it's thin, but it's deep.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think when we talk about margins, if you specialize in those areas, you become so good at that particular thing that you can start to increase your price. You know what I mean? Like if you've got customers who are actively seeking you out because you have such a good service offering and your reputation is built around that service offering, ultimately over time you can see that those prices or your ability to increase your prices becomes available to you. In fact, I think there's examples of this in certain industries, particularly where it's service-based. So
Yeah, like doctors,
lawyers, we're talking about lawyers before, accountants, real estate agents. If they become particularly good at their craft, then the ability to increase their prices over time, because people actively seek them out because their reputation is so good around a particular set of skills that they've got. You can't be, I think the reality is that you can't be good at everything. And so if you try to be good at everything, you'll be average at all of it. And then you will struggle to find people who will actively seek you out. For us in our business, it's a little bit different. I mean, we're not sort of providing a particular skill set, but we're providing a really differentiated product to this market that has been seeking this for what we believe is quite a long time. It just hasn't existed. And I think that's probably second to the ability of getting funding to purchase the vehicles. For us, I think, and particularly the team, because this is not me, this is definitely our team, have been able to pair this product with really fantastic, like tradie-focused customer experience. And that's sort of our competitive advantage, or what we
you're not just a car financier.
That's right.
You do it for tradies.
Exactly, and that's sort of our three pillars that we harp on about, probably to the annoyance of our staff, is that we have three competitive advantages, and that is tradie-focused customer experience, reliability of vehicle, and flexibility of service. And if we never deviate from those three core aspects. We could provide rent-to-owns to other types of businesses, but we don't, because we can't provide tradie-focused customer experience. We can't guarantee the reliability of vehicle, and we wouldn't know how to provide flexibility of service to those customers. So.
Yeah, and like a tradie would want a different brand, different communication, different experience than, for example, like a middle-aged woman who wanted to be an Uber driver.
Absolutely.
You know, like
exactly, yeah.
So your whole company can literally focus. Actually, you guys are the best example of what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, I mean, in those instances, we would send that to Kingy, the lead to Kingy for the Uber driver. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, exactly.
And to the listeners, Chris King's another Cub member who owns a similar company, but focused for Uber drivers. Yeah, you can't be good at everything.
Mm.
That's really the lesson. Like, even in business, like, I see so many, like, I mean, I've had Cub 9 years now. So many, it's always the young men that make this mistake I'm about to say. Young men who did well, always. They do well, they will sell their company, or they'll have an exit, or they'll do whatever. They end up cashing in somehow. Then in their head, they become masters of all business, and they start investing in like cafes, in training companies, in an event company, and like, you know, all these, and then all those companies fail, and they're just left with nothing, or a lot less anyway than what they had. Like, the best thing to do, I think, as an entrepreneur, is just to stick in your lane. Like, even with BOA, for like Cub and BOA, it's part of the same group. We're a network. We're Australia's largest business networking organization. BOA is still the same thing. I'm still providing business networking services. Mm. I'm just providing them to a different market. Cub's market's over $1 million in revenue. Mm. BOA's market is earlier stage businesses and SMEs. So it's the same thing. Mm. It's just a brand that is better designed and a product that's more accessible for a different market. So I really think, like, staying in your lane, like, is the way to go. Yeah,
that would be the best way to summarize it, is stay in your lane, and don't deviate, even because you know what, there's always these things,
especially for a car company,
especially for a car company. Stay in your lane. Exactly. Yeah, it's a good metaphor. And I think but the difficulty along the way. There's always these new shiny things, and I'm a sucker for new shiny things that pop up along the way, and you go, oh, that would be great. We should do this. We should do that. And where you get lost is if you don't have that sort of clear framework of what we will and won't do. Not just defining what we will do, but more importantly, defining what you don't do and what we aren't. If you don't have the framework, then the shiny thing just finds its way into the next gimmick that you'll offer, and chances are it's going to be unsuccessful. And projects along the way happen all the time that are unsuccessful. It's a regular occurrence, I find, in startups. But if you don't have the framework, then you can be overrun with all these things that are just so far outside what your specialty is that you can never be successful at them, because there's someone who's better at that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's not, whether or not they work or not, these new ideas, they might work, but it just might not be what your company actually wants to do. So like I had a team member approach me like the start of the week with some new ideas, like many of which were incredible. But one of them was like, hey, we should have like mindfulness rooms in the clubs where a member can go to like be by themselves and meditate. And it would be a great way for us to show that we care about their mental health. And I like, that is a good idea. Like we do care about people's mental health and people should relax, but we're not a fucking spa. Our job is in fact to put them in rooms with other people. It would be the opposite to our job to put them in a room by themselves. So while that's a good idea, that's not what we do. We're a networking business, and to your point, like you said, clear framework. It's like, it's the business purpose. Like if our purpose is to build genuine relationships between entrepreneurs, well, everything we need to do does that. If your purpose is to provide tradies with the finish that for me so I don't have to invent something real quick.
Purpose vehicles.
Then everything you do needs to be towards that one purpose. And the second you start acting like, we tried doing education at one point. Like, oh, that's great. Well, that's a great idea. We can start, selling members education courses and we can put together really great ones. We partnered with Harvard. We did all this stuff. And the course itself was good. It wasn't what we do. So it was distracting us from actually doing more of what we do and doing it better. So it itself worked, but it just wasn't in line with the company. And I think that's kind of what you're saying.
For sure. And that particular sort of, what would you call it, lesson has stood the test of time. Because if you look back over, if you read back over all of sort of the literature about how successful businesses. Actually, I think there's a great book about it called Tim Cullen's Good to Great. It's like one of the most probably well-known books in business, and Tim Cullen's is really reputable writer about this because of the studies he's done. But the main lesson in that book is, I think it's called the hedgehog concept, which is find what you're good at and stick to it. And that's what the differentiating factor, apart from a couple of other things, was between the study of businesses that were good, that went from good to great, is that they focused on those areas. And the follow-up lesson to that is he describes the flywheel, which is that if your strategy needs to be respun, if you need to build momentum every time you change course, and you change course all the time, and the concept of there's a flywheel and someone goes up to spin the flywheel and they have to generate a huge amount of force to get it going, right? And if you wait for it to stop and then start again, you have to generate more force and continue generating force rather than just building momentum in the strategy. And so if you continually change direction and course all the time, frequently, you'll never be able to gain momentum. And I think I do wonder whether in businesses the ones that don't make it through are the ones that kind of don't give it enough time sticking at that one thing, and then they're just constantly trying to build momentum. They can't do it because they're always changing direction. The hedgehog concept, and particularly in that book, the best way I thought he summarized that was when he said you should be able to say about your business, we are the best in the world at doing this, or we are the best in Australia at doing this. And whatever this is, that can be as long or short as you like. But when you're able to answer that, like, then you've found like your hedgehog concept. Exactly. That is what it is. It's like, I can actually be the best at that. And what he says is like, you got to find something that you can actually be the best at. As simple as that. And I think when people think about their business in that way, it actually, we're geniuses. It actually forces you to do what we're saying in the first. It forces you to specialize. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you know what I mean? We link that back real well.
For sure.
Like it forces you to specialize because you've got to be honest. Like, what can I actually be the best at?
Yeah, and if you're not honest, I think if you're not honest with it, it's so easy in business sometimes to be, I guess, dishonest with yourself. Like sometimes the easy road is to be like, oh, but it is working. It is working when actually it's not working. And sometimes, you need to have that like ripcord to just kind of pull the stop chain on it and say, when we can't proceed with this because it's not working. And, I have found in the past, particularly, I've had to learn to be a bit more conscious of admitting when I've done something that's not quite right. And like there's a project that I'm championing and trying to push forward and get everyone on board for. and it's just not gaining traction, and it's just not quite aligned with what we're doing. And there is something in that when given enough time, it just doesn't catch on. I think I've had to learn to admit to myself that, okay, it's okay, let that go, let it drop off, and sort of pull the ripcord and just and cut it there before you spend too much time and resources on this particular thing. And I think the other thing to that is, if as the business grows, I this is probably the same for yourself, become hyper aware of the cost of time and how much time is available. And particularly when I view it from my perspective, or say the leaders in the business perspective, whose wages are a lot higher than everyone else in the business, if the time's being allocated to low yield activities, then the inefficiency is sort of compounded in the business, if you know what I mean. So becoming aware of the cost of time, of allocating time to things that are low yield or have no potential future within the business, to sort of like pull those back and say, this is just not an efficient use of our time. I think that's one of the things I've had to become really aware of and learn quickly over the last couple of years.
Don't just do things for the sake of doing them.
Yeah.
Do the things that are the most important for you to do at that given time.
Yeah.
How much time do you think you spend enough time working on the business as opposed to in the business?
Up until probably 12 months ago, I would have said no. As of the last 12 months, I've really shifted my focus to working out what I need to be spending on my time on over 12 months, breaking that down into quarterly blocks, then monthly, then weekly. And that has given me a bit of clarity as to what areas I actually need to be working on the business rather than in the business. Inevitably, all this stuff pops up throughout the week that requires you to work in the business. And if I don't have some plan in mind as to where my time needs to be spent throughout the week and allocating that prior to the week commencing and the quarter commencing, then I will be constantly forever spending time in the business, doing the administration, answering the phones, all of that kind of stuff that I'm actually not good at anyway. But like over the last 12 months, because I do less and less of it, I'm not good at doing that now. Like there's so many examples of me doing a handover with a customer where I've stuffed it up. Honestly, I haven't had the customer sign the contract. I haven't taken photos of the vehicle. I didn't take proper payment. I didn't put the customer's details in properly. And then the staff go, Jesus, Tim, what are you doing? You know what I mean? It's just because I'm not effective at that stuff. I don't do enough of it. And every time I get into it or I get involved in it, I just bottleneck the rest of the team. I'm just in the way of everyone else. And I've realized that I've just got to get out of the way of everyone else.
Yeah. The longer you're in business, the more you learn that you're really not good at many things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At the start you do everything because you have to. So, you have to do it, you do it. Whether you're good at it or not, it's got to be done. And I mean, that's such an important stage.
Absolutely.
But when I think a business really, actually 2 points. You have that first stage where you're doing everything. You then get the second stage where you have to start bringing people on who can do things that you're doing better than you can do them. Whether you do that on purpose at first or whatever, but eventually, if you're doing a good job, you should end up with a team, all of whom are in roles of which they can do better than you can yourself.
Yep.
And then the third stage, which I think is the most important, and the stage that I think you get the biggest gains from, and a lot of the things you're saying are I can see it's this stage because they're all deep thoughts and you're basically just thinking all the time. And it's literally the thinking stage. It's it's my full-time job at the moment is just sit around and think about stuff because some people are really good at thinking, and often the business person is really good at thinking and they've got a lot of courage to actually try things too and to lead in the right direction. But that's the work on the business stage. We're not actually fulfilling that deep of a role within the organization.
Yep.
The organization is rolling, it's going, and it's a vehicle. You're sitting in it. It's a fucking Tradie Spec vehicle. You're sitting in it, and you're really deciding which direction it's going in is what's happening. But you're not causing any of the movements for it to move forwards. You're just directing it.
Yep.
And that gives you a lot less to do, which gives you a lot more time to think. And when you think, like, it decreases, I find anyway, it decreases anxiety because you think about your problems. And thinking about your problems gives you anxiety, but you think about the solutions to them. You know, like all of a sudden you're like, okay, what's the biggest problem? And then all of a sudden the problem becomes fun because it's like, well, this is my job, to solve problems. That's literally what my purpose is at this company.
Yep.
And so I've got to enjoy solving these problems. And then it becomes really fun and you lose your anxiety because you have plans for every big issue. Like,
that's right.
You know, this is our big issue at the moment, but these are the things we're doing to resolve that or to fix that or to overcome that. We only have one revenue stream. Okay, well, there's a big problem. How can we achieve 2 more revenue streams while maintaining our business purpose or focus or, you know, by staying in our lane?
Yep.
And me personally, I find that to be the funnest part of business, you know, is the thinking element.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think you're right. That's kind of the stage we're at. And to keep going back to Jim Collins, but
I mean, he's the greatest of all
he's
time.
Great,
so you refer back to him all you want.
I keep that book very close to me, but he talks about, and I think this is relevant when it gets to the point where you need to be working on the business, is that you can't work on the business unless you have the right people in the right seats. And that's where it becomes, I think some businesses sort of maybe don't break through that barrier because they're stuck, the leaders are stuck still working in the business, and they maybe refuse to put the right people in the right business. Maybe they can't find the right people in the right seats. Maybe they can't find the right people for those seats, whatever it may be. And they are constantly stuck in this cycle of like just never really breaking through that. When you get the opportunity to sort of like put a bit of trust in those people in those seats, it will absolutely reduce the stress levels because you know that those areas aren't being ignored. And I think stress comes from worrying about things that you know are being ignored rather than actually just the hard work that goes alongside it, right? So for a couple of years before this point, there was just too much work for the number of staff we had, and there was just so many areas that were being ignored, and I could just feel that building and building and building. And there was no time to sit down and work at a plan to address it. But then over time, we broke through that barrier, and me and my business partner, Matt, now have the opportunity, not as much as we probably want to. We still do get caught in, and it's just kind of like maybe a force of habit. But taking a step out and sort of preparing and prioritizing what needs to be done. And this is a perfect time of year for a lot of that stuff, right? It's in the financial year for us at the moment. We're setting up a new strategy, and we've got like a sprint structure where we take 2-year sprints on particular strategic priorities. And this is one of my favorite times of year because I get to sit down with the staff, see how they went last year, set up what the plan is for this year, get them involved in what they need to be doing, and communicate that, and sort of spend a bit of time motivating the team to, I guess, take this next sprint, which is the next 12 months, to try and achieve what we're trying to achieve over the next little while. I
think you touched on a lot of points there, but the 12-month sprint, I think, is the max sprint you should do. We've tried making 3-year plans before, 5-year plans. The truth is, you don't know where you're going to be in 3 or 5 years.
Exactly,
it's just going to be so off what you think that it's not even a point in trying making that's what we're doing. I really believe you can do a 3-year plan. That's fine, but and we do that, but we say to the team but forget it. Forget all that. We don't care. What we do care about is what we're achieving this year. And the things we need to achieve this year are this one, and this one. That's all we need to achieve. Because the reality is, I think making things more short-term for people, it makes it more tangible. So they're like, oh, wow. And then you actually achieve it. And you're like, woo.
For sure.
You get them excited. And it's easier to get their buy-in. Yeah. And, finding, what you were saying, finding people is the hardest. Finding good people. Sorry, there's a lot of people in this world. But the second you get into business and you realize you need to bring team members on, you've got to build a team, you very quickly realize, oh, wait, there's not enough people I want on my team in this world.
Yep.
So finding great people is very hard. Then finding the great people that fit the role, is even harder. And then keeping them,
For sure.
A big part of keeping people is what you're saying. It's like motivating people, getting them to buy into the sprint, getting them to buy into the success of the company. Like if they don't believe in the company's ability to achieve its goals and the company's future, well, why would they stay?
Yeah.
You know, if they're really good people, they'll go find another company that they think they have a brighter future at.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. So for the last 3 years, at this time of year, I sit down with everyone and we work out the plans, and I communicate what's required of everyone and how their contribution is going to be one of the biggest parts of what we need to do. And every year I sit down and I present and I say that we started with one car and this is what the journey looks like, and we map out the journey in front of everyone as to where we are today and where we're going in the future. And I say, not everyone in this room is going to be here for that point. And every year I say that, and every year there are the same core group of staff that are there the next year, and then there's always a few people there that aren't there for the next year. And I say it every single year, and it's interesting to watch the core faces stay the same and a couple of the faces that aren't there at the end of the year, because I think it says a lot when you see and I see these people and I'm like, you guys are without a doubt the high performers in our team, and you're always here, you're always committed. In fact, one of the guys we've got, Mitch, he won't mind me saying his name on the podcast, but he quit his job when we started the company to come and work for us on no salary. And for a staff member, that's massive risk to take. And he's still with us, and he's been through like all of the highs and lows of the business. He's ridden the highs and lows with me, my business partner, and his upside is nowhere near as big as our upside, and he fully would recognise that. But over the last year, we've seen this like incredible sort of transformation in his performance from someone who has been, he's in sales, he's a really high performing salesperson, someone who has been sort of compounding his skills to then the last 12 months just absolutely exploding with his talent and skill set. He's by far our highest converter in the sales team, but also leads the rest of the team in the strategy, in the scripting, in the organisation. And that this last 12 months watching Mitch grow has been like probably one of my proudest moments because of the risk that he took at the start, which was I'm going to quit my job with no guarantee, 2 kids, family, mortgage, no guarantee that this is going to work. Probably, you know, at that time, looking at the business going, the chances this is definitely not going to work. Taking the punt, jumping on board, and then still with us today.
But that's probably why. You know, that's probably why he's done so well. He's committed himself to the business and he wants the business to do well.
Yeah.
And that's something that people these days, most people aren't willing to do, except for business people. Like your job as a business person is to take a giant risk.
Yep.
Risk, you know, your ego, your money, your time. Like really, you're risking so much by starting a business. So business people understand that. But and there are employees too that take big risks as well. And they're always the best ones because they're committed to it. Like they want to do well. You don't take a risk unless you believe there is a reward that will fulfill it.
Yep.
Like that will be worth it. Sorry. So that's the whole point of risk. Unless you're a drug addict and you can't do risk reward ratio. Like But if you're a normal smart human, like risk is part of everyday life. Like driving my car is risky, but the risk isn't likely enough that it's not going to be worth me getting from point A to point B. You know, like life is risk.
Yeah.
Business is a bigger risk, but the reward, if it works out, is much bigger. And you do get employees that do that. And when they take that risk, they're bought in. You know what I mean? Like they're not there. It's not just a job. You know, they've really in their head, they've pitched their life and who they are as a person towards the success of this business. You know, with risk. Risk is like buy-in. It's almost a form of equity, you know, and they should always be rewarded, I reckon. Like,
absolutely.
You know, those people that stick with you, like how much better is your life as a business owner having that core team that you're describing? You know, those people that you just really rely on, like they make you able to do what you do.
100%.
Like you literally love them.
Without a shadow of a doubt, like family.
They are. Like, you would do anything for them.
Exactly. And they've been around, and I go to them about things that I can't answer myself frequently, every single day. You know, what do you think we should do with this? What do you think we should do with that? And they will provide me direction on what needs to be done, because the reality is that, you know, like it's very difficult to have the answers in areas that's just not my skill set or my specialty, but it is their specialty and their skill set. So to watch these guys develop over the last couple of years, particularly as the businesses as our business has taken these bigger and bigger jumps, these bigger and bigger risks to try and move the fleet in larger volumes, to watch them sort of step up each time without sort of limitation is gives me goosebumps, because they're incredible people. They're genuinely incredible people, and you would have it at Cub as well. And I've been with Cub now for 3 years, probably 3 years, and I know who those, like, I can see those people in and around.
Every business has them.
Exactly.
I mean, every business that's doing well.
Yeah,
your business isn't going to do well until you have them, and that is the unfortunate reality.
Yeah.
Like, if your business is relying on you to have to do something, it's not yet a real business.
Yeah.
It's basically just a very stressful job.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is. Like,
yeah.
But that every business starts as a stressful job. Like, it's kind of like just part of the journey. It takes years.
Starts as the worst job ever.
Yeah. Yeah. But at least it's yours.
Yeah.
You know, like I reckon that's why business people do it. Like, obviously they've got great ambitions. They want a great life. They feel special, for whatever reason. They have a lot of self-belief.
Yep.
But it's also they own their future.
Mm.
You know, if I'm going to fail, well, I'm failing.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm going to succeed, well, I'm succeeding. It's on me either way.
Yeah.
And I reckon that's I reckon that's the big appeal, especially at that starting stage. Like, that starting stage is hard, and it takes so many years to find the core team. Like, I would say it took me 5 years to find, not just find them, because then they also have to become that, you know, because there's different layers of team members. You've got the core ones who, like, you know, they're your ride or dies. You know, you're together. That's it. You're locked and loaded on this journey together.
Yep.
You then got the second layer, which are like people on their way in there. Yep. You know, like they've joined recently, or not super recently, but they've been there enough time to, they're really kind of transforming into, you know, they're becoming essential elements of the business. And then you have the new people who they haven't bought in yet. You know, they're like, oh, this is great. Looks like a cool company to work at.
Yep.
But they're not, like, their lives aren't committed to it.
That's right.
It is a job.
Yeah.
And your job as the owner is to kind of push them down that pipeline to get as many human beings, as many as you want, because you don't want them all there because they might not be capable, whatever it is. But as many as you can to get as deep into that center circle as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I used to get so invested at the start in the employees, and I would be so sort of committed, like, you know, how's everything going? You got everything you need? Is everything okay? Like, constantly checking on them. And then I found that it was like sort of babying them a little bit too much in a way. And what happened over time is I get so disappointed in myself and in them when they would leave. Like, I've put all this effort into you, I've spent all this money on you, like, why are you leaving this company? Like, it's a great company to work for. And the reality is that, you know, for everyone, it's not a great company to work for. For some people it is, for some people it isn't. But I'll get so down on myself. Like, I'd be really annoyed that the people were leaving. And so I've changed.
Because it is. It's almost like being rejected.
It is. It's like being rejected.
It's like, I'm not good enough.
Yeah, which sucks. It's a shit feeling, you know. But now, rather than sort of investing time in them at the start, we just give them the tools to show, to take the initiative themselves about what's available opportunity-wise to them. We let them know what's in it for them if they are successful, and we've got examples of those people in the business. And if they take the initiative and they show themselves to be someone that could be a future, you know,
if they prove themselves,
then great. But it means that I'm not so disappointed when they leave, because I know percentage of them they're going to go anyway.
You have to have it.
Yeah,
it's part of business. It's actually an important part of business. Whether they leave or you remove them, it's an essential part of business. Like, I even said it in our half-yearly whole team meeting the other day. I was like, this is like a family, but it's not a normal family. This is a family that you have to earn your right to be in. You know, like
that's right. Yeah,
you will be removed if you become that cousin that's a drug addict or whatever. And you're the black sheep. We're stuck with the cousin, but we can remove you from this team. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
yeah.
So it's like a family, and it is like rejection when you do it. I love that strategy that you said though. Like, it's getting like they need to prove themselves before you come in, because big companies.
I learned the hard way.
Well, I think that's most people's reaction is to go above and beyond right away. But the reality is, people, or if you give them an inch, they take a mile, and then you've basically set the playing field. Like, I'm gonna serve you nonstop, and the problem when you do that is, if anything's wrong for them, it's your fault. It's not their fault. I'm not getting enough leads. I'm not getting this. My work environment's not good enough. I haven't got enough space to focus. I haven't, like, they just start, and they expect you to start fixing everything because, you become their slave essentially.
Yeah.
That's not healthy. You want people that fix their own problems. That's what you're looking for.
100%.
But it's so difficult. It's so, like, you could literally talk. In fact, most of this conversation has been about talking about people.
Yeah.
It's just leadership. It's leadership.
It's leadership.
It's the hardest part of business.
Yeah, and it's 89 to 90% of the job, where is to manage the people and make sure that everyone's walking in the same direction. It's so frustrating at times. Like, you would know exactly how it is, that sometimes you feel like you're bashing your head up against the wall. But it's just such a necessary part of it. You cannot do it without these people, and it is incredibly hard to find good quality people, particularly over the last couple of years. We found it incredibly hard to find good quality people.
Because everyone has a job now too. Unemployment's too low. So
all the fantastic people are working for companies. And so, do you headhunt? Do you pay above it and overs for these roles?
It's hard. Like, it's it really is at the moment to find staff.
Yeah.
But anyway, I always say they're like, team are the most difficult part about business, but they're also your biggest blessing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like the devil and God.
For sure, I couldn't agree more.
Heaven and hell.
That's right. Yeah. And sometimes you have both of them in the same room at the same time.
How big's your team?
We've got 26 now.
And that's a lot of people. It's 25 lives that are revolved around the business.
Exactly.
Why did you start the business? Like, what made you be like, I'm going to... Were you a tradie before?
No. So I worked in finance. I was business analyst at a rental company, and my business partner, Matt, was a salesperson at a rental company. And sitting in our office, saw that these tradies were driving around in these spec'd up vehicles, and that the provider that we worked for didn't provide those kinds of cars. Constantly get complaints from tradies that the vehicle wasn't going to serve their needs. So we quit our jobs, went and bought this car. And long story short, we basically bought this second-hand Hilux with a loan we begged Macquarie Bank for. We had no business getting this loan. Put an ad on Gumtree to get the vehicle on hire. We got a call from a lady who lives in Richmond, which from where we're from is like 2 hours drive. My business partner had his father-in-law's sky blue Hyundai Getz, which was our get-around car at the time. Took the vehicle out, had the client sign paper documentation, which we basically ripped off from like Europcar, from another rental business. Signed the documentation. She didn't pay up front because that was our opportunity to get a car on hire. Anyone in a rental game knows that you don't make money on a hire under 7 days. She calls us after 3. We pile back into his sky blue Hyundai Getz to go pick up the car. We get out there and the car is completely trashed. Scratches all over the doors, had been smoked in, no fuel, dirty. There was concrete hardened throughout the tray. It was completely fucked, if I can say that word. And anyway, so I get in the car. She just doesn't pay us. There was no way we we're getting money out of this lady either. I get in this car and I'm just like, what the fuck have we done? Like, we are so screwed here. Drive back to the shed, park the car up, wait for the next call on Gumtree and do the same thing over and over. And it was just a process of just figuring out what not to do. That's literally all it's been. It's like end to end, what not to do.
But that experience is probably why the bigger companies didn't enter that market, because it was too difficult. Like, there were too many problems. They were probably like, look, it's too hard to get in there. Yeah. So then no one just entered it. And sometimes the biggest business opportunities are in the most challenging markets because no one wants to go in them, particularly the big players who already control the easier markets.
Yeah.
I've got this friend, one of my best friends named Ryan. His family own basically the IKEA of Africa.
Right, yeah.
And it's everywhere. It's a big, big business. And IKEA doesn't function in Africa because there's a lot of problems.
Yep.
Anyway, he actually got kidnapped one day. He's got a full kidnapping story. They kidnapped him because he was opening a store in an area he shouldn't be opening it. And it was a full deal. And anyway, finally they got him back. The government got involved. It was a big deal. The government got involved, got him back, and he went and saw his dad. And his dad goes, "You should be grateful." And he goes, "Why?" And he goes, "This is exactly why the IKEAs of the world don't want to come to Africa and why our business can function."
100%.
Isn't that a cool story?
Yeah.
Ruthless dad, but really nice guy.
Yeah. Far out. That's not Crossed, is it? That's not the guys from
Crossed is an Australian company.
That's right.
Crossed is an Australian. Crossed is another Cub member.
Yeah,
but they're an amazing business too. They were started 2 or 3 generations ago.
Yeah.
I think they're a South African family.
I think there is.
But,
that's why.
This company's just actually in Africa. Crossed is Australia. Yeah. But anyone that wants really well priced, high quality office furniture, go to Crossed. That's where we get all our house from.
There as well.
Did you?
Yeah.
Tim, thank you so much for coming on again. Second time. One of very few guests we've had for the second time. And to our listeners, if you want to get in contact with Tim, you can go to cub.club/podcast and get his contact details there, along with favourite books, quotes, and all sorts of other things. If you want to catch up with Cub on social, it's at Club of United Business on Instagram. Tim?
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed the show.